Hello, and welcome to Strictly Speaking. My name is Joshua Reaves. I'm the director of University Theater here at NC State, and we're just happy for you all to join us tonight. We have a amazing person to talk to. We've got the director of outside sales and a lighting designer. Outside sales for Huku Lighting and Controls, and a lighting designer by trade as KAITLIN Gill Ryder. KAITLIN, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So yeah, thank you for being here tonight. So let's get started right away, KAITLIN, with the first question we ask every person on Strictly Speaking. What does it mean to be a lighting designer?
Yeah, so to me, lighting design is about transforming spaces and shapes and controlling time and attention with shadow and light, both in architecture and in theatrical design.
Awesome. And I think it's cool how you say both with lighting and shadow. Can you elaborate a bit more about why, you're not a shadow designer, but you're a lighting designer? Why do you say those two words together?
Yeah, well, most of the time you don't have a shadow you never have a shadow without a light, and you usually don't have a light without a shadow. So the two kind of go hand in hand in my world. Theatrical design, I tend to be more of a dark, moody designer. And so I pay attention more to shadows almost than I do the lighting, to actually shape the space around what I am lighting. So to me, light and shadow are kind of the same thing. Like, I don't say I'm a shadow designer, like you were saying that.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. Like I agree. I like to design shadows, but I continue to say I'm a lighting designer. No, I get you. And so how did you get started in lighting? Like what's brought you into this career?
Yeah, honestly, my sister was my ride home from high school, and she was the star of the theater department. And so I just kind of ended up waiting around for her to take me home, and I got bored. So I started playing around with tech theater, and from there discovered lighting, realized I just kind of understood it and just clicked for me. And I didn't really want to do anything else after that. So
And so here you are. Yeah. And can you kind of take us through what's the process? I mean, we hear an actor gets a script and they read their lines, they memorize, they learn the blocking, and then they perform. Take us kind of through the steps of a lighting designer. Where do you start the process, and what are those major stops along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I mostly do community theater design at this point. And that usually starts with a phone call or an email. It says, hey, we're doing these shows this season. What would you be most interested in? Which is an awesome way to be able to pick my shows throughout the season, both what works for me in time and what do I really want to do? Like, I don't really like doing musicals. So I can actually pick from, I would like to do this show. And then they just kind of tell you, like, hey, we have an opening for you on this one. And I'll say, okay, great. Send me a script, send me dates, and send me budget. And from there, I can kind of pick and choose, maybe the script isn't exactly what I want, or the budget's not going to be something that I can actually design within, or the time frame doesn't work. And so I'll be pretty picky and choosy. But then from there, it's, you start with meetings, and obviously you get a script and you read through that. I tend to read through a script several times before I actually come up with a design. And I will say lighting designers, at least in Raleigh, and when I designed in several other locations, it's kind of the same, but I can't speak to all over. They're usually brought in late. So my last several shows I've been brought in after the set is designed, which I am not a fan of. But from that point, it's kind of taking the information that is already there and having that discussion of, okay, well, if the set piece is going to be here, I need a light here. Is that even possible with this space? And, from there, kind of moving further into design and putting together a light plot, developing your paperwork. And then it kind of all comes to reality fairly quickly. You have lighting, you have light focus, and then it's tech. And the lighting vision doesn't really come alive until tech week. Like, you can explain to a director, all day long, it's gonna look lit and like a sunrise over here, something,
Yeah.
and it's unless you have like really good imagery, I've noticed it's kind of hard for them to really understand that until you get to Tech Week, and then everything starts coming alive. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of a quick overview of the process. My process specifically, I tend to try to bring in students and people to help that people want to learn. And so I spend a lot more time in the upfront kind of teaching my process rather than, spending so much time on the back end of it, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So, okay, a couple of things. I got some questions. First off, can you tell us what it mean? What you use the term light plot, focus? What do those terms mean?
Absolutely. So a theater is going to give you an inventory of fixtures that they may or may not already have. And depending on your show needs, they're going to present you with a budget. And you might be able to just afford gel, which is essentially something you put in front of a light to color it. Or maybe you can afford a whole rental package of, moving lights or other fixtures. And so you would handle that separately. And from there, you kind of have to develop your light plot, which is essentially a map of lighting fixtures within the space based off of the inventory and based off of your needs for the show. So you want to make sure you have, a side light, back light, front light, and any specials that you may feel are really important to tell the story. And you map those out based off of the structure of the theater. So you have battens, or maybe you have booms if it's dance, or front of house positions. And then your paperwork kind of tells you, this fixture is fixture 1 on pipe 1, and it's going to be channel 12 or something like that. Also, I do not know if you guys can hear that. I do have a baby, so I apologize for all the noises. He is already getting loud.
All good. My 8-year-old son will probably be busting in here wondering, where's dinner? So who wins? Who gets it first?
Yeah.
Cool. So, and then the focus, you said that, you get into the focus and Tech Week. So what exactly are you doing, the lighting designer, at a focus?
Yeah. So at focus is kind of when you get to tell the light where it needs to be. So if I have a front light and I know that I want that front light to be in area A, which may be downstage, right. And you can actually, as the designer, you're typically on stage and you have somebody physically at the light that's there to point the light at area A. And you can then take a shutter cut, which is a metal blade inside the fixture, and say, I want it off of the architecture of the theater and I want it over here, and tell the light what it needs to be in the space. And you actually touch all the lights. Now, in community theater in Raleigh, I will say I end up being the focuser some of the times too. So it's kind of awkward being the focuser and the designer.
Hey, move over there.
Best way to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And so, and then you also mentioned, and thank you for that. That's great. And remember, y'all, if y'all have questions about how this works, just throw it out in the Q&A. You mentioned that you don't like musicals as much. So tell us what pulls you to non-musical shows? What do you find more interesting with non-musical shows?
I like shows with a lot of drama and that incite emotion. I feel like I got kind of burnt out on musicals early in my career. I guess when I was in college, everyone thought, oh, Caitlin's really happy-go-lucky and always bubbly. We'll put her on all the musicals because that makes sense. And so I did all the like big, heavy, loud musicals that all kind of ended up being the same for me after you do 5 in a row. I was like, I'm just done with this. And so I started getting more and more into shows that really, really invoke emotion. Like my last one was Bud Not Buddy. Wow. And that one was so heavy on the emotional side. And you really get to take a lot of liberties as a designer to say, okay, this is the emotion that I feel, and this is the emotion that I want to invoke in the audience. And you can kind of control that with lighting. All designers can control that emotion, costumes, set, everything like that. As a lighting designer, though, I can kind of enhance and focus what you're feeling in a certain scene. And I really like being able to do that. I will say there have been a couple musicals that I've designed in my career that I have really, really enjoyed. And they tend to be a little more kooky, like
Such as, do you have a favorite musical or even a favorite show that you've designed?
Yeah, Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson is my favorite musical so far. As you can imagine, it's a lot of blood and kind of
Drama, so to
yeah,
speak.
drama. Yeah, it was fun. Favorite show that I've designed? I mean, it depends. My favorite dancer I've designed was at Interlochen up in Michigan, and it was just kind of this community show where a bunch of choreographers got together and just did what they wanted, and it was very interesting and different. And I think Bud Not Buddy is by far my favorite show that I've done, and that was the last one I did. And unfortunately, it was shut down on opening due to COVID, so no one got to see it.
So sorry to hear that. You had mentioned that, you come in, as a lighting designer, and it's been my experience as well, coming in later in the process, and that puts you, I think, at a disadvantage sometimes. But you also mentioned that you don't really get to see your work until Tech Week, which typically could be anywhere from 2 to 7 days in most places. What is it like to work on a project, especially a large project like this, for quite a while without ever seeing the product until it's like crunch time? Like, is that something that you find exciting, or do you find stressful?
No, I find it exhilarating. I could see how it could be stressful, but it's a lot of I don't want to say imagination, but it's almost a lot of your own imagination and visualization that you have to kind of picture this physical instrument in this physical space. There's calculations, there's math, there's other things that you can do to ensure that this light is going to hit this location and there's nothing in the way and it's going to look like this. But in terms of the big picture, it's almost a mystery. I can visualize it pretty well, but it's still, sometimes you turn it all on, you turn your whole system on, you try to create that perfect look, and maybe it's not possible. And then it's, okay, now I have to go refocus the whole system and change the color because it doesn't work. It's not how I imagined it. And sometimes when it just hits just right, it's quite awesome.
Awesome. And how do you, as a lighting designer, convey that imagination to your fellow design team and director without them actually seeing it? How do you how do you build that trust with them to trust you that you're going to have something that looks like you say it will?
Well, it's exactly that. It's trust. I have tried various ways throughout the year throughout my years to really convey what it is that I'm seeing in my head. And in college, they're like, oh, find some, images online and draw things. And I'm just not that good of I've painted something before. I've come up with the whole collage of images before. I've done so many things, pictures from previous shows, which I hate doing. I hate Googling the show, but I had one director that wanted me to find images from a previous show. I was like, this is terrible. And nothing really does it. And it's also a lot of reading your audience, right? So some directors and some designers are like, I don't care what you're doing. I trust you. You do you. Some are, I really need to feel it and I need to see it. And depending on who they are, maybe by feel, you need to show them something physically. You need to take a costume and you need to physically show them on stage. Or maybe you show a picture that kind of invokes the same emotion you're going for, and they're good. But it totally depends on who you're talking to and what it is that they specifically need. So to some degree, it's really just people and communication skills as to what we have to do. And you kind of build a rapport over time with people, and they just kind of trust you, or they really don't trust you.
Well, has there ever been an instance where you get to the tech and you've had a disagreement with one of a collaborator on the project, like you guys just didn't see eye to eye?
Yeah, actually, there's a funny one in college. The show was Stage Door, which was my favorite show that I did in college, coincidentally enough. But I guess, so the the set designer actually switched halfway through the process,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And it actually switched to the professor of scenery, and he did an amazing job. It was incredible, but because it was switched, it was almost like everyone had the lines crossed. And, you know, we had a physical drawing of where the set was going to be, but the director thought that meant that people were going to be over here, but no one ever communicated that they were over here. And then the set and the vision didn't really line up. So in tech, it was kind of reblocking a very, very important scene to try to get people to where we could be. And honestly, I think we spent a solid 6 hours on 2 minutes of the show.
Wow.
Like, it was a mess. But it ended up looking great. You know, it was amazing in the end. And though it started as a disagreement, and I will say the room got pretty heated, you know, we all just kind of took a step back, took a break, and came back and said, okay, the only way we're going to fix this is if we work together and communicate properly. And we did that.
Awesome. We've talked a bit about your work as a lighting designer. Now, you've also are the director of sales at a local lighting company, control systems company, Huco. So, could you tell us about the company first and foremost, and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So, Huco Lighting and Controls, we are a manufacturer representative, and what that means is the factory, ETC, is our main manufacturer. So ETC is based out of Madison, Wisconsin, and we represent them in North Carolina, South Carolina, and the island of Bermuda. And what that means is we're here as a resource for dealers and end users and schools and all kinds of venues that may have general questions. So when they call ETC, you know, instead of saying, hey, I want to see this fixture in person, or I have a question about this, they can call us, and we're the local support. That being said, we also have a dealer network, which is who you would physically purchase from. So Atlas Stageworks is in Raleigh, Barbizon Lighting is in Charlotte, Bandit Lighting in Charlotte. There's several other productions in South Carolina, High Output in Charleston. There's several that we work with that offer, you know, installation services and that can sell goods. We are pretty much here as your factory face. And so what I do specifically as director of outside sales is a lot of architect and engineer interfacing, venue managers, people like yourself. And I personally work with a lot of students, both in my freelance career and at Huco. So I try to use that position to help make students aware that there is a career path, there are multiple career paths that aren't just you can teach or you can design. That's what I was taught in college. I did not know that there was, you know, a whole rep industry or sales. You know, I didn't know that this was something you could get into. And as someone who wanted to be a working mom, that was important to me to find something that, you know, maybe I wasn't going to be in the theater until 2 a.m., you know, every single night of the week for 2 months, you know? And this kind of gives me that, I want to say 9 to 5. It's a lot of travel too, you know, outside of COVID times. But it gives me a little bit more stability. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Well, take us through a typical, and I know it's not typical now, but you know, what do you do on a regular day? Or is it interfacing with clients? Is it dealers? I mean, what do you do?
All the above.
Okay.
So yes, a lot of interfacing with dealers, a lot of interfacing with architects and engineers. You know, they may call us and say, hey, we have this school we're designing and there's a performance place in it. Okay, great. Let's discuss, what do you need, you know, and how can we help? And another part of that is demo fixtures. So we have a warehouse of fixtures from all of our lines, ETC, ARI, Desisti, trying to think, Canto USA, several others, SGM. And we can take those out and show them to people or do live mock-ups on buildings and or feeders or ships. You have a picture of that. It's just it's fun sometimes. And so that's a lot what I do. Before COVID, it was, let's get in the car, let's drive to Charleston and let's do this demo for, on the Ravenel Bridge, or let's go to Wilmington and do a demo for the USS North Carolina, or something like that. Or let's just go and let's go see the guys over at NC State and drop off the short site and see what they think about it and get your feedback. So it's variable. There's not a typical day. There's not I start at 8:30 and I do this and this. Before COVID, it was planning travel and then traveling. We also have manufacturers in Tennessee and Kentucky. So, sometimes I was traveling there or just around the Carolinas. Yeah, it's a lot of different things.
And do you have any design component in your position there at Hookah? Or is it more about like helping designers?
More about helping designers. Okay. So we work with, consultants, lighting designers, both architecturally and theatrical, architects and engineers. So we're not doing the design legwork. We're helping, maybe, how does ETC ARC system work? And how can we implement it in this job? Do I need this power supply or this power supply? Kind of thing. So it's interfacing, it's helping, it's answering questions. Sometimes it might be in a system design. But no, if they need like a designer, we're connecting them to a lighting consultant or theater consultant or somebody.
Cool. So you mentioned, you're lighting bridges, and your clients are lighting the USS North Carolina, and we have some pictures of that right here. So what exactly did y'all do? Like, how did you support this right here?
Yeah. So I actually this happened with the director of the ship, I think. And it just so happened that we were in Wilmington and he said, yeah, we've got some people who may want to do a fundraiser to light the ship. And I was like, cool, I've got some fixtures. Let's do this. And we went there. Doug Tutcherup from SGM and I went there, and we used ETC controls, and we lit this massive, massive ship with, I think, 6 fixtures. And, not necessarily how it would be lit in real life in a, more thought out design. It was just kind of saying, okay, this fixture, from here will look like this on the ship. What do you think? And from this location, maybe we should use this fixture versus this fixture. And just kind of showing the concept, much like I was talking about in theatrical design, sometimes it's really hard for people to picture, what is it going to look like when it's lit? You're telling me this fixture needs to go here. Well, why? And so communicating that visually is way easier than communicating that in a drawing on a piece of paper or in words. Sometimes it just takes show and tell.
Well, okay. So you made the transition from designing to direct to sales, essentially. Is that right? Or did you go straight into sales and systems design?
No, so I started as a theatrical lighting designer, and I did that in Michigan. I was a master electrician in Interlochen and lighting designer, and then ended up moving to Buffalo, New York, where I was a production technician and freelance designer for SUNY Buffalo. And then my husband actually got out of the military, and we decided to move back home. And that's when I worked for Intech Americas as a production manager. And that kind of exposed me to the manufacturing side of the industry, which I thought was very interesting. I thought there were really cool ways they did things. And it was kind of eye-opening to me, being a end user, someone who walks a show floor and looks at fixtures for how can I use these versus, how are these made, and really what are they doing? And from there, I actually went and worked for an architectural rep firm for about 4 months, and decided that that wasn't really something that brought me a lot of joy. It's a lot of architectural fixtures, troffers and things, which was fun, but it wasn't what I was used to, in the color changing and exciting world. And shortly after, that's when Josh Allen from Huco found me, and I started here about 4 years ago. So it was kind of a smooth transition, but a shocking transition at the same time. Like, I never expected to be on this side of the industry. Like I said, in college, I didn't even really know that it existed. I wasn't seeking it. I just kind of fell into it. And I must say, I do really enjoy it. But I guess I forgot, in Buffalo, I actually started talking with end users of churches about, or multi-purpose rooms, about their lighting systems. And so I started kind of being exposed to it there. And that was kind of early on. So, and then it all just kind of led me here.
And do you find, in the 4 years that you've been with Huco, and as you've started working more on the manufacturing and the equipment side, have you seen the technology change a lot since then, or even since you started out in undergrad? Like, how much has the technology changed?
That's fun. That's fun. It's crazy. When I mean, I will say I wasn't exposed to a ton of, super updated technology in college and in high school. And when I started being exposed to it, going to trade shows and talking to local companies, I actually started interning at a mega church that had, creme de la creme. And it was just, I want to get my hands on it. I want to, really dive in and figure out what I can do with this stuff. And it did. It rapidly changed, and it still is. The LED world is very fast paced. It's kind of like, anything technology wise these days. IT world is developing incredibly fast, and so is the lighting technologies. Tungsten sources were around for a very long time, and they were developing fixtures around that source. And now it's almost like we're developing LEDs for fixtures, to fit into technology that we already have existing, but how can we make it LED? And now it's, okay, we've done that. How can we make it better? How can we utilize technology from other industries and put that into lighting fixtures? We now have wireless DMX data. We now have ways to connect to it on your phone, and augmented, ETC augmented, it's virtual reality for your stage, and it's constantly changing. So I will say it's very rapid. Once you learn something, you have to immediately start learning the next thing.
Of course, yeah. And have you found, in the sales of these fixtures and equipment over the last 13, 14 months, without being able to actually be in the room as much as you used to be with the equipment, with the user, how are you displaying or showing off your stuff, in the last couple of months, in the last year?
That is a very good question, and it is very complicated. Early on, we just didn't.
Yeah.
Early in the pandemic, we didn't. It was hard to communicate that at first, and then everyone kind of got, we were doing the Zoom thing, and we'll do it over the computer, which doesn't really show you the quality of light, and it doesn't really allow you to play with it like people love to do with fixtures and push it to its limits. So people have gotten very innovative with how they show things virtually. But now we're starting to actually get out there again and show things. But It's not the same. It's not the same looking at a fixture online as it is in person. So it's been a challenge, one that we're still trying to overcome as well.
So, well, cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that y'all are getting back out there, and hopefully, all the trade shows will come back, and you'll be able to get out there. Now, do you attend the trade shows as a representative now, or are you still going there as a kind of a see what the technology is?
No, as a representative. So we have, dealers and clients and customers that go. And so we go to interface with them and kind of show them, what's the newest technology on the market and how can we use this in your space? And also educational for us to see, what is everyone out there doing? There's this new technology. How many companies are incorporating it into their fixtures? And, getting our hands on stuff that maybe we can't get physically in our offices yet.
So speaking of that, I used to go to trade shows to see, what the new equipment is, so I could use it as an end user. How does a company like Huco see what the manufacturer is making? Do they send you, demos, or do they kind of talk to you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so usually they do some kind of fixture release newsletter, and maybe they'll show us virtually before it's released to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will get a demo unit most of the time in our office for us to look at and play with, whether it's a permanent loan or if it's a temporary loan. And once I've had my hands on it for a day, I'll start taking it out to places. So again, that learning things pretty quickly, I get a fixture in my hands for maybe, 8 hours, probably less. And then I'm out showing it to people.
Yeah.
So.
And what's been the coolest, or like, has there something that's come across your desk that you're like, okay, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can't wait to show this off. Has there been something that stuck out to you over your 4 years?
I mean, a lot of things, theatrical fixtures, ETC just released the Source 4 Series 3 in terms of film and video fixtures. There's the new FOS4 in terms of architectural fixtures. There's SGM in terms of moving lights. High-end Systems is doing a lot of cool stuff. So there's not like one fixture that stands out and I say, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, but it's just always something new from all of our manufacturers. And they all have different places in the industry.
Okay.
So, wireless technology as well, that's been kind of cool over the last 10 years to see that be incorporated into more and more fixtures. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us a bit about SGM Icons Architectural Lighting Competition? You worked with some students from NC State on their submission, and they won. Darby Madewell and is one of the students that are directly involved with the University Theater, along with some other students with the engineering department, electrical engineering department. Can you talk a bit about the competition and what SGM is?
Yeah, so SGM is a lighting manufacturer. They are based out of Denmark, and they do a lot of moving lights and wash fixtures, architectural and theatrical, and they are all IP rated, so ingress protection, and that protects against water, weather, climate, particles, dust, things like that. So it's a totally different ballgame of fixtures that we use a lot architecturally and outdoors, in permanent applications, and people use them in temporary applications, tours, all kinds of things. And so they have been trying to really get in on the educational side as well. And by doing that, they came up with the SGM Icons competition, where we were to get with local universities and light an iconic building. So I actually work with Darby a lot in my freelance career at my little theater in Theater Raleigh, and she's incredible. So I called her up and I said, what do you think of this? And she kind of took it away. And Josh knew Daniel Mananza. He called him from the electrical engineering department, and he said the same thing. And they were so excited. So SGM sent them some fixtures. I don't remember the fixture package off the top of my head. I believe it was a lot of the I fixtures, which is very narrow, and some P fixtures, which is variable, but I have to look back and kind of figure out what they sent. And the students put together a design, both where are we getting power from, how are we going to control these fixtures, what is it going to look like, and they physically lit it. It was also probably a good communication exercise for them, because NC State has a lot of rules and regulations on what can be lit, when it can be lit, and who's going to light it. And so they got to kind of do that interfacing with people from facilities, from management, and kind of lead those conversations and say, hey, we're just a group of students that wants to win this competition. And they did, and it looked amazing.
Yeah, it was they lit Thompson Hall at the end there, and they and you did the tower was the big one.
Yeah, Sally Tower. Yeah.
Yep. So that was awesome. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Okay, so going back to lighting design as a designer. Now, I hope everyone here is familiar with different spaces across Raleigh. And if you're not, once we're back in the theater, please make sure you visit RLT, Raleigh Little Theater, or Theater Raleigh to see their spaces. But when you design in a space, let's take Raleigh Little Theater, for instance. They have two theaters that are very different. One is your traditional, we call it proscenium house, where you kind of sit in front of a picture frame and you watch it, straight on. But their other space is it can be reconfigured to different places, different shapes. You have the audience on all sides. How do you approach those designs differently, or how do you look at that and say, I'm going to make this light and shadow work when people are all around them?
Yeah, so you should approach every show differently, no matter if you've designed in that space 1,000 times or not. And there are several different types of theaters, and the Gaddy is the one that you can configure however you want. And I've done shows in there where they've done it more like a proscenium type theater, or in the round where you have audience on all sides, or a thrust where you have the stage in the middle and audience on two sides. And each one presents its own challenges, and you kind of have to figure out the architecture of the space and the structure that you're given within the confines of the set, and design from that. So even in the Sutton, which is the proscenium theater, the set is going to change my ability to light the stage each time. It might be a physical blockage of a set right in front of where I need to put a fixture, or it might be more of an obstacle, I guess you could say. So, I mean, how I approach them, I could sit here and talk for another hour about how you do that. It's complicated. You kind of have to map out in the space how the beam of light is going to get from point A to point B. And physically how that's going to happen. Is it going to be in an audience member's eyes? Is it going to be on a piece of scenery? Is it going to be too much of a angle, or is it going to be too flat of an angle? And how to achieve that for each show is different.
Okay.
So.
Cool. Well, and another question about shows: how do you choose color for a show?
So talking earlier about the emotions that I feel, and every human perceives color differently. And when I think of sad, the blue that I see in my head might be different than the blue that you see in your head. Maybe you don't see a color in your head. Maybe it's not even blue, right? And so what I have to do as a designer is say, okay, this makes me feel sad, but what kind of sad? How do I want someone else to see this and to perceive this? And also, what color is the costume? What color is the set? Is the floor painted? If I choose a really, really dark blue, is it going to change the color of the floor to something that the set designer hates? Or what is the skin tone of my actor or actress? And how's it going to affect them? And maybe I'm not using a blue to make people feel sad because I have a certain costume or a certain skin tone or a paint color on stage. So it's complicated. And that's something that's different for every show and different for every context of play. For the most part, I will read through a script and I will jot notes of what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And the second time I read through it, I will cross things out or elaborate on maybe what I mean. And then from there, I will say, okay, maybe I really need some heavy saturate colors for this show. And then I'll go talk to the costume designer immediately and say, okay, I'm thinking really saturate colors. Let's work together here. Or I'm saying maybe this isn't so saturated. Maybe this needs to be a little bit more calm of a show. And then I'll go talk to the costume designer immediately. It always ends with the costume designer and the set designer.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Caitlin, two more questions for you. What's the favorite part of your job? What do you love the most about what you do?
Talking to people, and that it's a different challenge each day. I love solving problems, and everyone approaches problems differently. And I find it interesting to solve a problem, be it theatrical design or something in Hugo.
Okay. And then finally, our last question that we ask all of our guests at the end of the show is, what one piece of advice would you give someone who is interested in going into a career such as yours?
Okay. Find someone that has the job or the career path that you want and invite them to coffee and come with questions or ask if they have 10 minutes to talk to you on the phone and just ask them, how did they do it? And how would they do it again? Like if they had to do it now, what would they change and what would they do differently? So find that person and reach out to them. Most people in the industry are going to be very nice. So, just a conversation. And then the other thing, I'll give you a piece of advice that my dad gave me, which is about applying for jobs and interviews. Never be afraid to apply for a job if you feel like you will enjoy it. Even if it says that you have to have an MFA and maybe you only have a BFA, or maybe you don't have a degree, but you have, a lot of experience in what it is, just apply. You never know. Maybe that's just something they had to put on the page because they are required to, but they don't necessarily need it. So never be afraid to apply for a job and always go on the date, is what my dad always said to me. A job interview is a date. You're both there to see if you're going to enjoy it, if they're going to like you, and if you're going to like them. Always go on the date. If you don't like it, that's fine. Yeah. If you love it, that's fine. So.
Cool. I love how your favorite part of your job is talking to people is the same as your advice is to just talk to people. And that's great. I love it. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us tonight to speak with us about your career in lighting. And everyone else, thank you for joining us for listening to Caitlin, hear everything she has to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Caitlin, thank you so much. And good night, everybody.